we look at the past, I would hope we can get inspired by looking at the craftsmanship and looking at the details and long to build better because we see beautiful things like this. Industrialization, life is speeding up, okay? And this is important because in the arts and crafts period, they feel like their lives are going too fast, right? And you see this as the cities grow and these houses are exploding, going everywhere, and things, immigration's happening. The world is moving very fast, and buildings change, okay? The building designer of Asher Benjamin and Ithiel Town become just builders, no longer designers, and the craftsmen become installers. All right, we're no longer making things, and that's a big deal on the building side, right? If you think about from 1830 to 1890, the way things change, right? 1830, every wood part that went into a house was made by hand, right? They sawed the lumber, they planed the lumber, they made the moldings by hand. Everything was made by hand. By 1890, you're picking it up at a lumber yard or you're picking it up at a train yard, right? It's just, what is that, 60 years, right? It's just a few generations, and you no longer have the craftsmanship and the ability. Things are changing really fast. Plans which would have been hand drawn. We talked about Charles Bulfinch and the drawings and the details that they would do. In the early Romantic period, you begin to have guys like A.J. Davis, Alexander Jackson Davis, who actually is a beautiful artist and can actually do things. By 1890s, you're buying them in plans. Ladies' Home Journal was a huge plan book company that was selling plans to ladies, and ladies were being involved in like picking out their home in their monthly magazine, right? The specs provided by an absent architect, right? Some of these early plan things, they were also sending out, because building becomes easier, right? You're no longer timber framing the house, you're nailing it together by hand, you have less skilled labor. So architects are actually having to specify how to build, okay? Again, this change from master builder to installer. The house timber frame, I was just saying, by skilled house wrights. Again, now it's nailed together. And the next time we're going to talk about house kits, right, that arrive, that literally have joists with a slot and a number so you know where to stick the 2x4, right? So you're talking about they're selling that house to a farmer who's never built before, right? They're selling that house to someone who doesn't have any skill and yet can still build their house. Decoration was only for the wealthy. Now decoration is very cheap and readily available, right? If you think about the catalogs, Decorator's Supply, Decorator's Supply, and did you lose internet back there? So then you have Decorator's Supply and these companies that sell out of catalogs. You can order ornamentation out of catalogs, right? It's kind of crazy. Commercial buildings. Remember we talked about Washington, D.C. and that the U.S. Capitol was a timber frame building, right? And then by 1850, they have a steel frame and steel construction. And, in a very short period of time, building changes, okay? So I just want to kind of show what's happening with building and when we talk about these parts. This is Asher Benjamin. This is in the Philadelphia Museum if you want to go there. These things aren't very difficult, okay? The ornamentation would have been made in compo, right? So it would have been a carved form, and then composition molding, which was a sawdust and animal hide, would have been used for this kind of decoration. But not crazy, right, to make that by hand. A few different moldings, obviously highly skilled. This is a very, very high-end house that's obviously in a museum now in 1800. This is a Greek revival house. Just thinking about the technical prowess that would have been required to make these things. A lot of flat boards here, decoration in plaster, not in wood. So if you think about making these as a craftsman or carpenter today, again, not a huge deal. There's a molding there, 2, 3 moldings, right? But a lot of flat boards, not a huge thing. But again, a very elevated wood. This is in Philadelphia, a very high-end city, okay? And then this is anywhere in the 1890s, right? So it's stained grade wood. It's most likely a hardwood like oak or cherry or something like that. It's incredibly carved. It's incredibly ornate. There's an explosion of wood, right? Because it's cheap and fast. And if you compare, these things, which are all paint grade, because it's very difficult to hand plane oak, okay? So there's a reason why Greek Revival, Georgian Federal houses are all paint grade, because there's all paint grade wood, okay? But when you get into the Victorian era with steam powered machines, molders and shapers and all the different things, you can do this, right? And so there's an excitement about this. Now, at the same time, there's also some regret going on here, and that's what we'll talk about with the arts and crafts period, is they look at this and they go, we've lost our soul to the machine, right? There's no more human touch here, and we've got to get back to that, which is what we'll discuss next time. But, you know, look at this house. I showed this last time, but this is 1796. This is 1869. Was that 73 years difference, right? A square box, you know, and wow, right? All different materials. Railroad allows you to bring in slate from a different part of the country. You can bring in Italian marble. You can bring in things from other parts of the world, which you could never do in this period of time.